Welcome to segment three. Kevin Sullivan joins us. Kevin Sullivan Communications.com. Is that correct? Or is it
Correct.
so? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Good.
No, you
He's
can
more.
get it. Yeah. KSullivanComms.com, KSullivanCommunications.com. Uh, we'll both work.
He will not sell you a used car, I promise
No.
that. But he is one of the great. A, he's a Purdue graduate. B, he's worked close with Purdue athletics over much of his career. But he's also, it's good to be an expert at your young age. So we're gonna
Yeah.
market you as an expert, a communications expert, and one of my favorite people. We have much longer private conversations than we do public, though we don't do them near enough. But Kevin, welcome to the show. I know it's a highlight of your media career. We're glad to have you on.
It is. I love it. Thanks so much for having me on, Alan.
Yeah, Kevin's credentials are interesting. He has been on the White House staff working for George W. Bush on the back end of his second term, if I'm right. He has worked with the Dallas Mavericks after his days in sports communications with Purdue, and of course NBC as well, does and still does consulting. But I know that the Boilermakers are near and dear to your heart, and I guess my message to all Purdue fans is you best enjoy this. But even from where you sit, this has been a lot of fun to watch so far this year. And I did see you at for the Arizona game, so you did see that one in person.
That's right. And now that the calendar has flipped and it's now March, and
Yeah.
my friends are here in Dallas, in fact, it happened this morning. It's okay. It's March. How you feeling? The Boilers. March has not been kind, and I'm nervous. I mean, my heart rate is a little elevated. I fear. I have to admit, as a Purdue fan, I know your viewers, listeners, and readers can relate to. We just naturally assume there is heartache, doom, gloom, tragedy, catastrophe, calamity, chaos, and mayhem around every corner. We've been trained to feel that way, even though I'm an optimistic person, and I think this is going to be the year. And believe in Coach Painter, of course, and let's go.
Yeah. That Zach Edey guy's pretty good too, though, isn't he?
He is pretty good. And as a matter of fact, in
That's
anticipation
a,
of
a
my,
lead right, a lead right into you. Go
you
ahead, my
teed me
friend.
right up. And
Yeah.
we've kind of done this annually, and the last couple times, I make a point of speaking to NBA personnel people who are friends of mine, people with lots of experience making these kind of decisions. And Jonathan Gavoni, who's a well-regarded
Yeah.
prognosticator at ESPN.com, came kind of out of nowhere recently and said Edie is now a lottery player. And I had one person who would know tell me this week that is not going to happen.
Yeah.
And so here's kind of when I put together what I heard from these two different experts on the inside. They told me that the NBA game is too fast for him. They admire him as an athlete. They admire him as a great teammate. They know he's improved. They know he's worked on his game. They know he is agile. The fact that he played baseball and hockey and other sports. There's a lot of Zach Edey fans. They feel that the best thing for Zach would be for him to be drafted later, not earlier, and that the expectations that would come from being a lottery pick would not serve a player like Zach, who even as two-time National Player of the Year is going to need some time. Now, remember, if I'm not mistaken, Oscar Tshiebwe was the Player of the year before Zach. He's in the G League. You think of a player like Timmy from Gonzaga, who is in the G League. These big guys. The game is so fast, and it's this high pick and roll, and they make switches, and that who would he guard, and so one person told me the Boston Celtics would be a great place for him to land. They've got a history with big people. They're the best team in the East, so there's going to be patience. It's a good organization, and so hopefully Zach goes, maybe later in the first round, but gets in a situation where he would have some time to become an NBA player. The good news is it sounds like he is going to be drafted. Now, others that I spoke to said, for players like Zach, sometimes it's better not to be drafted. Then you can find your spot where you have the best chance of being brought along the right way, or a coach who's willing to say, you know what, I can use him. And then the last point, and then I'll wrap this up. I know I've given you a lot here. Is is Boban Marjanovic is a little bit of a template potentially for Zach. He's still in the NBA on the
Yeah,
Rockets now. He's had a great long career, unbelievable teammate. He's beloved. You know, he has gotten national ads, including State Farm, and I think Home Depot was the other one
right.
because of how much he is beloved. I got to know him a little bit when he was on the Mavericks for a couple years, but Marjanovic is a player that coaches starting way back when he was on San Antonio and Detroit. Rick Carlisle did this with him in Dallas, of course, now the Pacers coach, where he may not play for 3 or 4 games, but then there's a matchup where they feel like they can use him, and he would play some in that game, always kind of staying ready. So that's a big download on kind of what a couple of NBA personnel veterans think is in the offing.
Yeah, I think it's great analysis, and you've lived it. The fact, and I've watched a couple of things or seen a couple of the mock drafts where he is on the back end of the first round. That seems to make sense. Certainly, bought the Celtics is an interesting one because Brad Stevens and Matt Painter are attached at the hip. I think your point about him being a great teammate, extremely hard worker, but it is a fast league. He's got to find that niche. You would think. But man, I'll tell you, I was at practice a couple of weeks ago and watched, and I know he's finally made his three, which we saw
Right.
against Indiana. But I also watched, and they do a shooting drill at the end of practice, and he hit I think 10 or 11 in a row from three, and they look natural. I know that's not going to be his niche necessarily in that league, but it will be a fascinating study on where he ends up and how and what role he has in the league. There's one thing's for certain, he's going, and that is no surprise, and he should. But
He
it
should.
is a thing, and I think he's going to make some money in that league at some point in time, and or at a great point in time, and well deserved. He is a great teammate and a hard worker.
And if you want proof that he's a good teammate, look at the reaction from
Yeah.
that 3-pointer that he made. Fletcher Lawyer's out of his mind. The bench erupts. It was a really cool moment. I admire, and don't forget, it was 2 years ago, I think, there was that video of Zach running a 5:30 or whatever it was
Yeah.
mile at 300 pounds or thereabouts. He was maybe even a little heavier at that point, which is extraordinary. And so the guy has worked so hard, and definitely it seems to me there'd be a way for him to contribute. I never thought in my 18 seasons with the Mavericks that there would be a day where we would say we don't need a big man who's a 2-time National Player of the Year. But Yao Ming kind of got on the tail end. He may
Yeah.
be the last one. He was also mobile and had a game. Not unlike, it's a little different, but not completely different from Edie.
Yeah. Well, one thing's for sure, he is athletic, he is in shape, and he has been an unbelievable, his college career is going to go down with all the all-time greats. I mean, you can't minimize the fact that when you and I were in school, or you're a little bit older than I am, but the Ralph Sampsons of the world, and we watched Pete Maravich, the 2-time winners. There aren't all that, the David Thompsons. There aren't all that many of them out there, and I think it's pretty clear that that's going to be what's ahead for Zach Edey and company, barring anything completely unforeseen on that. All right, you are an NBC guy, and Peacock has been the bane of every Purdue fan, well, every fan's existence, because change is hard in this world, Kevin, as you know. Yet that is the world. But give us a little bit of flavor, not only with that, but also where you see we're going to be streaming everything from now to the end of time. One thinker, is that a fair assessment, or how do you look at that?
Disruption, a few years ago came to television, and then it came to live sports. And what I would tell people is, don't fight it. This is how it is. Anybody who tells you that they know how this is going to end up doesn't know. They're kind of guessing. But here's the deal: is everything is going to be streamed. And I did have the occasion. I got to do my prep if you're going to bring me on goldenblack.com.
I know it.
This is
it's
a big
hard
deal,
work, man.
and I spoke to Sam Flood, who's the executive producer of NBC Sports, and he's told me a couple interesting things. First of all, with the home football games that they did, one of them might have been NBC, one of them Peacock Syracuse, I forget which was.
Yeah.
But they loved coming to Purdue and had a really good experience. being there, the atmosphere and the whole deal. So just as a little side note, I think we've
And it
cultivated
was
some.
the Syracuse game. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, and then we've cultivated some Purdue fans up in Stamford, which is now the home of NBC Sports. But anyway, on Peacock, it's here. It's not. Not only is it not going away, it's going to be more and more and more and more. And it's growing. It's only $5.99 a month, so it's not a big ask.
Yeah.
The user experience, they've done 2 Olympics on Peacock. Paris is going to be live on Peacock, and the user experience has improved with each big thing. But we're in a world now, Alan, where the early rounds of golf majors are on streaming. For crying out loud, we've got NFL games only
Yeah.
available on streaming, and so this is the world. NBC has taken it seriously. I think has done a good job. User experience has gotten better, and the numbers are growing. And Sam even said to me, he said, things like having Purdue games, the number one ranked, and a few of those occasions, Purdue Boilermakers in men's basketball, and Caitlin Clark, of course, with at Iowa, has fueled, their the growth of Peacock. It's been a big, big increase in subscribers. And so I would say get used to it. Figure out as a consumer how many of these things can you afford? Do you want to have? Are you really going to use? Now, we saw the bundle get announced a few weeks ago. To everyone's surprise, even the leagues didn't see it coming, where Warner Brothers Discovery and ABC Disney came together with a Hulu-like bundle. It's basically everybody but NBC and CBS, Peacock, Paramount Plus, and ESPN is already formulating a direct-to-consumer streaming option that they feel will be ready in 26 or 27, I believe. And so it's just coming, and it's how it's going to be in this bundle that's being formed if it all goes through. Of course, includes Fox, I should have mentioned, which
Yeah.
has a Big Ten, half the Big Ten deal and the Big Ten network. So as Purdue fans, we're going to be watching on streaming, and so just figure out what works best for you. But I would say there's not much point to resisting any further. The old days are gone, and it's a different day. And in some ways, there's advantages to it, but it's just different. And you're right, change is hard.
Change is hard, especially in the pocketbook, but may not be at the end of the day more if you figure out how to manage your, if somebody
Right.
gave me a chance to have the Big Ten Network, Peacock, and HBO Max, and maybe Netflix, I might be good.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
and of course I'll get my WLFI fix, but I can put my own thing up with that as well. So it is an interesting study going down. I have to ask you though, in the wonderful world of media rights and the fact that we're having all of this chaos and mostly in football, but with the conference realignment and all that. Do you see that appetite when now we're looking at 2029 when all these contracts come? I mean, they just got signed, right? So tell me what you see for the future of this, because I do see some challenges of competitive balance, making sure that the Rutgers or maybe even the Purdue's in football can be competitive at the bottom half of that Big Ten, so that a Purdue-Oregon game is competitive and interesting to watch. How do you see that coming down the pike?
Well, number one, I think this Big Ten SEC task force, working group, whatever they're calling it, if that clearly to me is a signal about where this is going. I think there will be more haves and have-nots, and I could see a day potentially, Alan, where it is the Big 12, and you see they're talking about going to 14 teams in the college football playoff. Big Ten and SEC automatically get 3. So now you've got this dogfight. Assuming Ohio State and Michigan remain dominant with USC and UCLA and Penn State and Washington and on and on and on, fighting for that third, playoff spot. Hopefully Purdue can be in that mix. And so now you're the Big 12. And of course the SEC now with Texas and Oklahoma added, so Georgia and Alabama and Florida, and who's, maybe on the way back. We'll see. So yeah, I think the haves and have-nots are probably coming. So where does that leave the mid-majors? Maybe doing their own separate thing, one day, who knows? But the revenue involved in this is staggering. And that's obviously, money has always been a part of college sports and pro sports. It just has not quite been in our face as
Yeah.
much as it is now with NIL, the portal, the stuff you see on the PGA Tour with them getting $3 billion of outside money so they can increase purses and benefits to the players. It's just much more in our face, which we don't like. In fact, I heard a branding expert a couple months ago say one of the big advantages to WWE is nobody knows what those superstars get paid because we're
Yeah, I
kind of
think
getting
it's
sick of the money being in our face. And uh, there was a freshman defensive lineman, I believe, at Florida who signed and then bought his mother a house as a freshman in college. He had enough NIL money. That's usually the thing you see a player do when they sign their first pro contract. This guy isn't even, I don't think, out of high school. I don't know. Maybe he was an early signee, but anyway, it's a different time. It's totally driven by money, and I think the haves and have-nots are coming. And I think, fortunately for Purdue fans, I think the Big Ten is well positioned to be, to have that major seat and influence at the table of whatever it's going to look like. And clearly, the NCAA, which in my view totally abdicated responsibility over NIL, is a bystander at this point. The conference commissioners are in charge, and let's see how it plays out.
I think it's a reminder, Kevin, it's not our world anymore, is it? I
Not
mean,
our
you're
world.
not our, it is different and it is part of the deal. My only concern for Purdue, and it sounds like if that alliance, Purdue just needs to get invited to the dance in football. I mean, it
Yeah.
just needs to not get left out. I don't think necessarily that's going to happen. Maybe that alliance and the fact that it's part of the Big Ten and continues to be, 18 of them get invited. They all work well for Purdue from that standpoint. As we look down the road into the 2020 and into the 2030s, really, where all this may all come to pass. All right,
Yeah.
I have to ask in our mutual friend and colleague to some extent, Chris Klink, who because they're a sponsor, I'll mention them, Triple X, and we wish you were with us. We're gonna have a
Yeah.
little lunch here in a little bit with our late afternoon snack with Chris, but. Back to your day, because it was the last time Purdue made the Final Four, 1980, and I
Right.
was a basketball manager, and you were a senior in college. Is that
I was
right?
I was a senior and
And
desperately hoping I would graduate, which I did. And
okay, were you
yeah,
praying or hoping?
I was praying and hoping
Okay,
and cramming and I was trying to get Tim Clojo to help me with my studies is what I was
yeah.
doing. Uh, but yeah, it was an incredible time. The sports information office, which you eventually became a part of. We had an incredible group. Mark Brand, who went on to a Hall of Fame sports information career at Arizona State. I don't want to start naming names. John Hostetler,
Oh yeah,
who goes to the NSA and is the funniest guy talking about Purdue being Indiana in any sport. Uh, Lori Kiley, who went on to great things and on the corporate side. Karen Snepp, the
yeah.
inimitable Snepper, and Clank and me and Don Coitz, the rail man, and
Oh yeah,
he had a great career, and so that bunch of us, our my senior year. Now Snepper was already graduated that
yeah.
year, but anyway, we had the Peach Bowl followed by the Blue Bonnet Bowl followed by the Final Four, which was an incredible time to be a Purdue student and having a little bit of a backbench seat there as a student assistant. So we all got to work the Final Four as helpers in the press room, passing out stats, that kind of thing. I remember my seat was behind the UCLA bench, at least for one of I don't know if it was Saturday or Monday, but we got to go, and it was just an incredible thing to be a part of, and I still think about it to this day, and it was a great Purdue team, and Lee Rose did accomplished a lot in a short amount of time at Purdue, including getting us back to the Final Four, for the first time, and we didn't think at that point it was going to be 43 years or 44 years till we got back, but it had been 11 years, I guess, right, since
Yeah,
'69. So,
that's right.
uh, so anyway, it was a great experience and really fun to share with our group of Tom Shoup and Paul Jensen were our leaders, and Brooke Merrow
Yeah.
was the grad assistant following the great Karen Croak Heisler. May she rest in peace.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And you guys never had a libation or anything while you were working or at the end. You never
No,
did that. So
no,
you
it
were
was in
you
fact.
were all teetotalers.
Well, let me
Uh,
tell you, the real story here is that Clink and I think Cloge was with baseball, so he couldn't
yeah,
leave this early. But Clink and I left campus and we drove to Lexington, where the Elite
regionals.
Eight was, if I
Yeah,
remember this correctly. And
right,
we beat Duke, led by Mike
right.
Jaminski and some
Yeah.
other players, to get to the Final Four. Well, Clink and I drove from Purdue to Lexington. We stopped at the University of Cincinnati because we wanted to go meet the SID there. We were hungry, kids trying to find our way. And we did have a libation or two. There was a famous bar called, I think it was called the Two Keys in Lexington. And I actually was in Lexington because I do a little work with the University of Kentucky. And I asked them if it's still there, and they drove by, and it's not in the location it was when Clink and I terrorized it in 1980. I think we went there before and after. I think Kent Olinger, who we called Muhlenberg, I think Jensen,
Yeah.
that name, he became the designated driver because we were responsible young citizens. But that was the trip that I remember being more out of control than the Final Four trip. Although I'm pretty sure the Final Four trip was out of control too. And thankfully I don't do that anymore. But it was just incredible fun and great camaraderie with the crew, and just a real privilege as a young kid trying to figure out. I already knew what I wanted to do based on the first day that I got in the sports information office. When I walked into room 16, 15, what was
15, room
15 in
15.
Mackey Arena,
Yep.
my life changed. So
Yeah.
deep gratitude for Purdue and Purdue. Now, of course, it's called athletic communications or something
Strategic communications,
strategic
which it
communication,
all is, right?
which it all is, but I love it and great memories.
Yeah. I think the story was, and we're going to have to cut this off because we could go on we could have our own podcast, I'm afraid. But no, the whole thing was it was the old Charlie Daniels, L.A. via Omaha. You can return home from Lexington via Evansville or something like that. You could with Ollinger. I don't remember what the whole story was, but
Yeah,
it,
we
it was.
definitely we did. We ended up. I forgot about that. Yeah, we ended up when we had picked up a guy named Gator Wilson who was a Kentucky student, and he was part of that. Although I think that was the Rupp Arena game, not the Market
Okay.
Square Arena. Yeah, I think Clink will have a better memory. So ask him at the Triple X, and have a root beer for me. And I can't wait to get back to campus and get over there. I have a
You know
Triple
what's
T-shirt I wear all the time. So
Yeah, you know what's interesting is if Purdue does make it to Glendale, there will be students just like you driving
right,
from West Lafayette to Glendale as opposed to West Lafayette to Indianapolis. Of course, Glendale near Phoenix, but
right.
that's what makes the experience. And I will say this as a manager, and you is there is nothing like in my sporting life. I can remember the drive from Lexington to West Lafayette, knowing you're going to the Final Four.
Yeah,
Unbelievable
yeah.
experience, and if you're a Purdue fan, you hope that you're going to
Yeah.
have that
I,
experience.
I
Maybe
hope.
driving out of Detroit, maybe back to West Lafayette before you head to Phoenix.
Yeah, it was great. And before we wrap up, I
Yeah.
really I want to give a shout out as a subscriber to
Okay.
goldenblack.com. And I, what Tom Dienhart does, and Brian and your whole crew, it's really appreciated by us Purdue fans. But I also, as a somebody who does this also for a living, this comm stuff, a little tip of the cap to Coach Ryan Walters and
Yeah.
and and that operation. I don't know, I have no inside information, but it appears to me as a reader, and watcher of the video content, that he has given Tom and the goldenblack.com crew more access and information than had. As great as the Brom years were, and I'm glad he was our coach and he left it better than he found it and all that. It was, information was, cliches were more abundant than kind of insights and information, I always found. And so keep up the good work, and really appreciate what those guys do, because not only do they get good information and they're good writers, but you can tell that they care. They want to provide good information and everything. So way to go, Karpik. You guys do a great job.
That's the blind squirrel that I get. It's who you associate yourself with, and I'm very thankful that had a long career with Brian and certainly with Tom, and Mike Carmen has helped us as
You,
well.
you had to clear some cap space to get Mike,
Yeah, we
in
did.
there, and
You know,
that was
we're
well,
hemorrhaging cash at Golden Black with Carmen. I tell him that all the time, but
that was a great
that's okay.
pickup. Yeah,
Yeah,
that was
he's great as well. But we're very
yeah.
very fortunate, and we're glad that you coming from you. That means a lot. So
Well,
we've
I
had a lot of
appreciate
fun
it.
doing it, and you're right. Ryan Walters has been that way. Matt Painter's as good as it gets when it comes to that stuff. And
Well, that
Brian's
was another
relationship.
reason why the contrast with football. I should have said that.
Yeah.
Is that Coach Painter is phenomenal at this, and there was always a contrast. And I know football coaches are a different kind of deal sometimes, but I appreciate the access to information
Yeah.
and everything. So
All right. Well, we
go
will look
boiler
forward
up.
to we'll look forward to seeing you in person. Maybe. And would you make it the trek to Arizona if they happen to
Maybe,
get there?
yeah, maybe. I'm
Yeah.
not gonna.
Yeah.
We shouldn't even be talking about it.
No, I know it. We got, you know what? We got to, Purdue has to make the trek down the street to Indianapolis and win 2 games there before they
By
get
the
anywhere.
way, by the way, one more little nugget. I was doing media training with the Golden State Warriors,
Yeah.
which of course it was their subsection of young players, which included Trace Jackson Davis, and super nice guy. I was almost
Yeah.
disappointed at what a good person he was. And so, but I asked him before we got started. I said I shouldn't probably ask you this, but why do you think Purdue has struggled in the tournament the last 3 years? And he, without hesitating, said it's the Big Ten tournament. And he said 1 year at Indiana, they ended up playing 5 games in 7 days. You know, maybe that's including the first round of
Yeah.
the tournament. Of course, I don't remember Indiana ever
Well, they
being
had
in
to
the
play the
tournament.
play-in game though too. That was part of it too, I
That
think,
was
when he
part
was
of
there.
it. So and there's always been this is probably, I'm sure this is not true, but some people have felt that Tom Izzo, part of their success in the tournament going back many years, was that he held back a little bit in the conference tournament. I don't know. So I'm not necessarily going to be disappointed if we don't have a long run in the conference tournament. I think our seed is hopefully going to be solidified at that point. But let's not have anybody. Let's keep them all bubble wrapped during the conference tournament. And let's not go
Well,
too.
let's keep them healthy. I think that's what Purdue has to want to do, and that is clear. But I'm going to buy that it's the Gene Katie rule. And by the way, the only time, just a matter of fact, because we're a fact-based you're a big believer in facts. When Michigan State, the last team to win the NCAA tournament from the Big Ten,
Right.
What did they do in the Big Ten tournament? They won it.
They won it. So
in 2000. So, and my point is, Gene Katie said, "Who will be in the crowd Saturday night?" In fact, you're going to like the fact that it's going to be. You probably be able to see it on TV. It'll be striped gold and black with "Play Hard in Black" in the student sections on Saturday night. It's going to be a great environment. But Gene Katie used to always say, you know what? They're 18 to 22-year-olds. They don't know. They're young. They should be ready. So we'll see. But whatever it takes, if you're a Purdue fan. You just want to get through that first game and move on from there. I think that's one thing that's interesting about it is get through those first couple games, get some confidence, and go at top of the NCAA tournament and move on from there. And I'm thinking it's gonna happen at least through those games as well. This is a very good basketball team that we've all enjoyed watching. Hey. I'm going to be late for my lunch now. It's good. My late lunch, I should say, with Chris. But no, I appreciate always great stuff, Kevin. We could have you on every week, and we appreciate that very much. We want to also thank, now that we pumped the heck out of him, Triple X on the hill, but on the level of Purdue tradition since 1929. And of course, State Farm agent Trent Johnson at trentismyagent.com. The good folks at WLFI too. We are thankful for them. Gordon Jackson and company, and Mary at Truax as well. We appreciate everything they do to make this happen. So we'll see you next week, and we will have more unbelievable insight like we had today. We hope we will, but we'll have going into Senior Day, which is going to be an emotional Sunday afternoon in Mackey Arena when Zach Edey and Mason Gillis and Ethan Morton and Lance Jones say goodbye. But we will have a lot going on the site for that next week. So have a great week, everybody. Kevin, thanks again, and
thank you.
We'll see you guys down the road on Golden Black Live.